guys.
Hey, how are you doing? You alright?
Everyone, yo, you all right?
About yourself?
Hello, I'm doing good, thank you. I'm doing good. My camera looks a bit funny, so if I just disappear out of nowhere, just randomly, you know what's going on, you know what I mean?
You're all good.
Yeah, no worries.
I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening here, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, we're gonna have technical difficulties. But yeah, if I disappear, you know what's going on. But yeah, you guys okay? Good to have
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, all good.
Hello, hello. So yeah, are you ready to start? I won't take up too much of you guys' time. I know it's very precious.
Brilliant. Yeah, ready to start. Thank you.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I've just got a few questions about the new album, everything that's been going on recently. Everything's been looking banging, everything's looking really, really good. And this is just an opportunity for you guys to kind of like get your name spread around Stoke and kind of introduce you guys to our Stoke listeners if they don't already know you. And yeah, just get your kind of like feelings on everything that's going on. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant, banging. So let's start right at the very beginning. How did you guys form? How did you guys meet?
So myself and Mike were in school together in the same year. So we always played. We became friends, like bonded over like the same sort of band, the same sort of music. So like we started playing, you know, like music and recording in our houses and stuff, and being like just interested in that kind of stuff. And then James is in the year above us, who's just out of camera because we can't see. He was in the year above us, so he moved from Dubai. We were all kind of in different bands and different things, and then we decided to just try it out. Me and Mike try James out as a drummer. We found that was a good fit, and then Louis and James worked together, so James asked Louis,
asked me to come along, and yeah, came along and really enjoyed it.
And that was in like 2015, like around that sort of time. So, and then since then, obviously, that's 8 years. So, I mean, we kind of, for the first few years, we kind of finding our feet. We didn't really know what we were going to be, kind of tried something out. And then in 2017, then we had some success. And kind of since then, we haven't really looked back.
Yeah. And it's all been brilliant so far. And you guys are such a good fit for each other. Like you said, you know, it helps knowing each other so well, so you can bounce off each other and really get that music and those influences across. And it's also good, like you say, to be testing the water and seeing what works and seeing how things go. And we had the EP and we had a few singles. Did like the virus kind of like impact your work or possible work that could have happened? How did you guys find the virus just after?
I think so. I think it affected in like multiple ways. I think it affected us in the fact that we had more time to write, so that album changed a bit from what it would have been if it had come straight out. Yeah. But I think that period of time was helpful because we were able to really like craft every song.
Yeah, and by the time we went in to do the album, there was quite a lot to choose from. But obviously, then we didn't have a huge amount of time for everyone to learn it because it was more sort of demoing at home and then, you know, bringing it in for that period just before we went in. So that was you know, one thing where we just had to kind of prioritize certain songs and just make sure that we, you know, the album that we were making we felt was the best thing that we could do at the time and with the resources that we had. So there was some positives in the sense that it gave us a lot of time and opportunity to really you know, make sure that we had really good songs and a lot of them. But then there was also the kind of bit just going into the studio and making sure that everyone sort of knows what they're doing. That was all a little bit rushed, but I think we managed to do a decent job in the end of kind of just condensing it and making sure that there was some sort of focus behind everything that we were doing then.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to hear that you've got that time to kind of like get everything you wanted into it and really fine-tune everything. The album is absolutely banging. It sounds brilliant. It's masterfully created, and every song, you know, is really a hit for me, at least. One. And you know, it's rare that you get an album that's like that, because like sometimes I'll listen to like an album, I listen to a whole thing, and you know, creating an album is very different to doing an EP, you know what I mean? EP is very like focused. You've got like about 3 or 4 songs that are really, you know, all your effort kind of like goes into, and then in an album kind of songs get lost, you know, you've got some filler and stuff like that, but there's no filler in this album, you know what I mean?
Honestly, I mean that means like an absolute ton to us. That means loads. That's like, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it was important, you know, like obviously the age of streaming, certain songs are going to get picked up more and some are going to do better than others and be a lot more popular. But at the end of the day, we want those fans that want to come and listen to a whole album to be able to have the whole thing as a good experience. And for, you know, I think a lot of the best albums they're more than the sum of their parts because the songs complement each other as well and kind of bring each other up. And I think it's really good to hear that because it's something we feel like we've tried to accomplish with it.
Yeah, exactly, and it is really good. It's really, really worth it. Really worth having an album and really worth the focus. And we are from hell. We're at from hell to here. What are the inspirations that have kind of like gone into it? What are the influences that have gone behind it?
I think there's quite a lot to be fair. We all share like the same core thing of like bands that we love, and then we have like extra little bits. So I think there's a lot of like reference, I guess, on this to like Arctic Monkeys and like Queens of Stone Age. But then like we take different routes, I guess, to some stuff because there's a few like more ballady songs, I guess, on this. Like I'm a huge Nothing But Thieves fan. So I think Colin's vocal on from Nothing But Thieves is insane, and I think we've always wanted to do like a pop vocal with some rock elements as well. So I think hopefully that translates in the albums that it's not too like, oh, I can't listen to them because they're a bit too like the voice is too much. So I think we tried to make it like really singable as well. So I think that was a huge influence for us as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point. Really, it's kind of a rock album with its heavy moments, but the melodies have always been one of the most important parts of what we do, and even on a lot of our older stuff as well. So I think, yeah, just to kind of again with those sides of things, it maybe not come so much from the core influences, and they've come from elsewhere and influences that Joe and I have had as songwriters for things that you probably wouldn't expect and don't sound anything like what we're doing, but you just pick things up from a bit of everywhere. And as Joe says, we've got those core influences, but we all take we've all got a lot of different tastes, and we all take things from other places as well, and it's just a case of amalgamating it all and making it work for us.
Yeah. And do you have like a connection to each song? Because some artists, they kind of, there's some songs that they kind of prefer over others. Is it like that for you guys, or do you have that real connection with each one?
I think this was
Kind of
super
changes,
strong. Like,
yeah.
I think this like felt like quite a strong album to me anyway. Like we were all really happy. So like, and I guess this is the first album we've ever released. So I have nothing to compare it to, but in terms of like how I feel about each song, I'm really proud, I guess is the word.
Yeah,
but I think
I don't think there's anything that any of us are like, oh, we could have done without that one, or if that didn't make it on the album, I wouldn't mind. I think everything that's on there, we're all really, really proud of and really happy that it made it on there.
Even though it's still super early in the release of this, like the album stuff, like obviously being last Friday on Friday the 12th just gone. I mean, we've lived with this album for like a while, so we had it mixed and we had the final mix back for ages, so we've been sat on this for a bit, so we've still had time to listen. So to me now it still feels like just as good as when we left it. In my head.
Sometimes as individually it can take a little time to build those connections to songs, and like Joe said, we've been sat on sort of finished product for a little while now, and we listened to it loads and loads and loads while we were making it, and that would draw certain attentions to certain songs. And then when you get all the mixes back, you're listening to other songs you hadn't necessarily listened to previously as much, and going like, oh, this has really got something. And then you're like, okay, I've over-listened, so you stop for like a month or two and then re-listen to it, and you're like, actually, new songs are kind of popping out to me. So it's, I think like that it's very much a sort of development of getting that sort of attachment to songs, and it does change on what you're doing, what you're like. For instance, we were saying earlier that there's a connection like when we're playing songs live to certain songs because they're specifically really fun to play or whatever. And then there's other connections when you're listening to it because you're just doing something. So yeah, I don't know, it can change. It's
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And you've got the emotional side, and like you said, the performance side, and like you said, you should be really, really proud of it. I've had a chance to it hasn't gone up on the station yet, but I've had a chance to play it for a few people, like family, friends, people I work with, and that's what I try and do with these interviews that I've got. And the reaction was just brilliant.
Wow, yeah,
really
thank you.
Excited by it. And the people I'm kind of surrounded by, they don't really get excited about rock music, you know what I mean? They're kind of like poppy people, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It really did, they had a really good reaction to it. So it made me so hype. I'm like, I've got to get this on station.
Cheers.
Cannot wait.
No, that's awesome, because I think for us, like I like we're massive fans of pop music still. You know, like we still love like stuff like that. So like and like we work on pop music as well, like aside, you know, like, or in other genres, like as other things as aside to the band. So I think it's exciting when someone says that they're still into it, even though they like other genres.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And do you guys feel that you've like changed as people from, you know, way back with the Ecstasy EP? Do you think you guys have like evolved and kind of like
Yeah,
I think we've all got worse, to be honest.
I think there's a
general decline.
Yeah, back then I had emotion and feeling.
Yeah.
Now I've got none.
They've all been stripped away.
You've got feelings, right? No, yeah. So I think like that kind of thing. But I think also like we're less naive now. I think we just wizened.
Yeah, it's a bit more realistic about how everything works and how it all goes, and what our expectations of everything should be.
Yeah, and sort of what battles to pick, what we really want to push forwards. It's sort of you do just get a bit more sort of aware, and when that's the case, it sort of widens the picture up, and you've got more sort of places to go.
You know, like getting to this point and having your debut album out and having made that and the journey that's sort of led to it. You know, it is kind of like, regardless of everything else, we're really, really happy with it. So, and that at the moment is enough. You know, obviously you want to go on and you want to do much bigger and better things, but you know, just having that as a priority and knowing that you've done something that you can be pleased with, you know, after all this time, it's kind of, you know, it still gives you a reason to be doing it at the end of the day. So I think that's something that maybe we've all learned to appreciate and love a little bit more over the last few years.
Yeah, brilliant. Really good to hear. And you know, we've kind of been on about it so far, like the reinvention kind of aspect, moving into different genres, looking at kind of different influences. Is reinvention important to you guys? Do you think that you know, down the line, say we've got another album on the way, more EPs, more singles, stuff like that, do you think that there could be like drastic changes, or do you think you've kind of found your sound and you'd like to with something like that?
I think there will be changes. I think we're just naturally going to flow like with inspirations, and I think we've already talked about the kind of way we're going to go. I think generally, if you're into like this kind of stuff, you'll still have something always will always be influenced by our favorite records. So there will always be a touch of what we've currently been doing, but within new styles and new ways. Like it's
all about progression. I think, like, you know, as long as we're progressing and getting, you know, better as musicians, better as people, better as, you know, songwriters and stuff like that, then, you know, it almost doesn't matter, like, you know, where we go, as long as there is progression. And I think that's really important to us.
I think with the album as well, we've given ourselves quite a lot of different places to go. You know, no two songs are the same on it, and we've tried to do different things on different songs. So it's quite nice for us as well, because we know we've kind of got that scope and we can do different things and kind of get away with it and still be the band. But again, it's nice having that focus as well as that kind of starting point. Okay, we want to do a bit more of this, or we want to do a bit less of that. And just kind of move from there then. But it will definitely move and progress. And, you know, it's nice to think, you know, where it might end up. And we're all much better musicians and better at writing songs than we were, even when, you know, we went in to do the album. We've learned an awful lot from that. So it's it's great to sort of think where that could go from here.
Yeah. It's all really exciting stuff as well, you know, exciting seeing the progression and seeing how much you've accomplished so far in such a short period of time. It feels like, you know, it feels like it has been a short amount of time. And you've already... But yeah, you guys have done so much. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Is it hard to kind of like operate as a 4-piece band, you know, like balancing like personal life and stuff like that? Is it hard having that kind of like balancing act?
I think it's always been all our goals the same.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, generally it's more challenging than if you were like just an artist on your own, like a single person doing a single thing.
But on the flip side, we all motivate each other.
Yeah.
I think, and like, I guess I'm speaking for myself here, but like, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. And I think that's the same for these boys. So it's like, at the end of the day, whatever sort of difficulty we come across, there's still that side where none of us would want to be doing anything different.
We've got the same priorities and we know each other has the same priorities. So kind of regardless of anything else, we'll make it work, I suppose. There are difficulties, and obviously just scheduling things like that. It can be difficult to work around, but we all know what's important to us, and that kind of keeps you going then and puts you in a particular focus and direction.
Yeah. And this is a bit of a tough question now. This is a bit of a hard question. But what do you guys think of kind of like the state of the rock genre right now as it stands in terms of like charting and kind of like the inclusion of rock on the charts? It's something we don't really see nowadays, which I think is a massive shame. It is very poppy as it stands. What do you guys think of that? Do you think it's better it being more kind of like on an indie kind of like alternative side, or do you think you kind of want to see more inclusion there?
I think it's difficult because it's like such I don't know, it's such like a big, I could give a really in-depth answer here, so I'm gonna try and shorten this.
Oh no, you're all good.
For me, it's like rock's like still big in the US and Germany and other places, so the UK is quite specific as to like why rock music isn't seeming to do well. But I also feel like as well, my biggest thing, I guess, is how many bands in rock or like rock / indie, I guess, is a genre, don't do well. Is like this, it's more amplified now with things like social media, so we see it, we notice that difference. However, I also feel like as well, there's a huge amount of responsibility for a band who does break through to either bring others with them or to make a reference back to that genre they are, because a lot of bands that we like even if they're on the heavier side of rock, eventually changed, obviously, to become different to what they were. So you have some bands who are like changing to be like a prime example I know is because of his voice, but like Bring the Horizon are now a lot different to the way they were. And I know they're a slightly different version of rock than we would ever have been or we would ever be, but I think that's a big issue, how frequently rock bands seem to tour or seem to be around and present, whereas pop acts, they're putting on songs every 2 minutes. So suddenly that a thing of people being present and being like, oh, well, they haven't got away, because we tour as well, like rock bands tour. So you're touring, so you can't be here doing the stuff that other people do, whereas a pop artist might not tour as much and they might do the odd festival and the odd thing. So it's all about what they're releasing. So I think sometimes that's more difficult, and I think that sometimes is detrimental to new bands, but I think we're just happy to do the slog. And like I think if we had 10 people listen to us who really appreciate that would be enough for us. But the fact that we can have tens of thousands, if not millions of people through Spotify and fans across the world listen to us, we're really appreciative of it.
Yeah, the other thing that's important,
No, you go.
It's charting and things like that is so sort of industry led, and it isn't a true representation of how much things are actually being listened to anymore. It's very much sort of based around certain elements of image, social media, all of these different things. It's not just as kind of straightforward as this song's got the most streams or the most plays or the most radio, so we're going to do it. So I think it doesn't matter like as it used to, and I think the great thing for us is because of things like Spotify, our audience is international, so it's not like we've got a ton of fans in the UK, but when you add them all up over the world, it starts to look like quite a lot of people. And
it's also
we know that there's that appreciation elsewhere as well.
To lead on from that, it's also that like as much as like in certain areas it feels like rock music's sort of dropping off, rock fans are some of the most loyal fans in the world. Like, I mean, you've got bands like Iron Maiden, for instance, have probably had some of the same audiences for 40 years now. And it's like, with that's kind of like its own separate thing from any charting thing, any sort of like ranking system of where you're at, because Iron Maiden know that they don't even need to get into the charts to sell out a world tour, like, because their fans are going to be there for them. And I think that's more important than any sort of like ranking system.
We appreciate the loyalty more than just being a sort of act that you have a couple of songs and then everyone forgets about you 5 minutes later. We would rather the build and the slog and the longevity of it, and to think that what we're doing is part of a progression. We're going to keep getting better and keep bringing more people in, rather than just kind of having 1 or 2 tracks to do really well and then that's kind of the end of it, job done.
And honest to God, I couldn't agree more. That was perfectly put. it is really about the connection. You know what I mean? The connection that you've got with the fans, the connection with the live performing side. And if you've got that connection, you know, sky's the limit, you know what I mean? And you can really go forward with that. And that is where the longevity is, you know what I mean? Do you guys enjoy performing live? How have your live performances been? Is that really like important to you as well?
Yeah,
really
we
is,
love
love it.
that. To be fair, like I think we played live the other night, and I remember just thinking to myself, but yeah, it just felt right again. You know, like,
so whatever we
just,
got to
yeah,
do,
like it was
to get there.
like it was,
that's
yeah,
what it
it was just, yeah, like we just love playing live, and I think that's like we've always been a live band, but I think we always will be.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the feedback, like energy wise, from like an active crowd. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think it does well, and you know when you're just there doing it at the time, and you can see people enjoying themselves, you genuinely can't really ask for more. That is like kind of the best experience. As much as you love, you know, I love actually spending time in the studio and writing and producing the music. You can't see people's reactions to that in real time, whereas you can play in live, and that obviously has a huge impact on how you feel about what you're doing, and it does feel really good when you can see people just really loving what you're doing there.
Yeah. And have you guys enjoyed kind of like this side, like getting to talk about your experiences and like your influences and kind of like the backstory to like the music? Have you enjoyed this side?
Yeah, we love doing this, and that, you know, it's like half hour or so where you get to talk about yourself. It's nice, right?
Yeah, Joe loves talking about himself.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. That's all good.
No, not at all. But yeah, it's going to help you make sense of everything, I think, a little bit as well, and just, you know, to get it all straight in your own brain, to actually have to sit down and talk about it and think about it a little bit more. It's good. It does kind of enhance the experience of everything else as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And we've been talking about kind of like the music industry so far. And another side that's kind of like coming back is like the physical media side, like vinyl, cassette, CDs, stuff like that. Is that something you guys are wanting to do in the future? Is that going to be kind of important to you, like as you go forward?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to put together a headline tour. I think probably is going to be towards the end of the year. I just can't really make the most. We got some shows to announce because obviously we're quite busy across the summer with festivals and stuff. We're going to do some shows, then doing some sports, and then we're going to do some headline shows. But we're hoping to kind of have some vinyl and CD available for them, because I think we kind of want to be there with people when we're selling it and stuff. But I think that was something we're always really pushing for the label to get physical stuff. So we're hoping to get that done.
Yeah.
And again, it's about that connection as well. It's just nice to have, you know what I mean? Like having that connection with the artist even more, like having something physical, you know,
definitely.
No, there's something about it, you know what I mean? There's something really about it.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing, we try and do that because we're super grateful to fans. Like I think we're going to start doing some stuff, sending some stuff out to fans who like join a mailing list and stuff. Just in the interim until we get vinyl and CD.
Brilliant. That is really good to hear. Because a lot of artists I ask and they say no, you know, they don't have any interest in kind of like producing that kind of like physical music. And it can be expensive, but you know, it really is about that connection and just staying connected and you know,
This is your piece of the band, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
So but it does mean a lot to people. As music fans, it means a lot to us when you go and buy a record or something. Because you know you're invested in it. I care this much about this thing that I'm willing to spend money on it, and then go home and sit down and listen to it for 40-50 minutes rather than just sticking it on in the background.
Well, especially on the live side as well. Like there's a side where like going to a gig and then going to the merch stand afterwards, buying like a vinyl or whatever, and then that's almost your memory of that gig. You know, that's where like you take that home, and then when you see that, you just remember that gig every time you look at that or listen to that, and you're like, yeah, like Mike said, it's a piece of the band.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of just wrapping up now, what has been your guys' proudest moment so far? And that is probably the toughest question of the whole bunch. Big or small, you know, what's been the proudest moment?
Looking back at it, probably saying yes to James about joining the band for me, because I'd be somewhere very different, I think, and I'm very happy.
I'd be a computer scientist, so I'd be in my penthouse, like working for Apple, but instead I'm stuck in a sweatbox van 300 days a year with you guys, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I think for me, For me, I think this summer, the fact that we're back at Ren and Leeds and the fact that we're back at Mad Cool, having had a pandemic in between, and kind of like the fact that we hadn't released music for a period of time, we feel like we're back to our best. And I think this, for me, may be the proudest moment. The debut album out, going to these festivals again, and really on the front foot. That this feels like the most proud, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
I think that's a really, really well put.
Yeah, we've just got to that point now where albums out, lots of exciting stuff happening, and then again, like being asked back to things like Mad Cool and Reading and Leeds is it's obviously amazing to do those things in the first place, but to think you're good enough to go back and do it again, like that really means an awful lot as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Really, really brilliant. And just quickly, like, what's next for you guys? I mean, we've got the album, we're all really enjoying it. Is there any key dates that you want to mention, like tour dates, anything in the future?
In Europe, we're going to Europe in early June, supporting a band called Lost Society. Then we've got a few festivals, so some in Europe, and then we've got some UK ones like Float Along Festival and Reading and Leeds. And then we're going to be announcing some shows and some support and all this kind of stuff from then on. So if you go to our social media, so like Himalayas Official on Instagram, or you search our website, which is himalayasband.com, you'll find all of the information, and we'll be releasing that information like as soon as we get it. And then new music potentially before the end of the year.
Oh, that's great. That's really good news. That's brilliant. That's fab. But yeah, and just a massive thank you to you guys for coming along and giving us some insight into your influences, everything that's gone behind everything. And it's been really lovely and really interesting to chat to all of you guys. It's just been brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.